Valley Regional District Board meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone in attendance. Welcome to Director Morin and Director Hardy, who are attending online, and to alternate directors Wells and Jolicoeur here in attendance. And welcome to all the other directors and staff. Just to start off, we're going to be going into a closed meeting at the end of this open portion. So if I could have a motion, perfect, to go in camera, perfect. So we have a first and second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. We'll go in camera afterwards. Very important part of every meeting is we have a call to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada. Today's call of action is number 79, commemoration. So we call upon the federal government in collaboration with survivors, Aboriginal organizations, and the arts community to develop a reconciliation framework for Canadian heritage and commemoration. This would include, but not be limited to, number one, amending the Historic Sites and Monuments Act to include First Nations, Inuit, and Métis representation on the Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada and its Secretariat. Number two, revising the policies, criteria, and practices of the National Program of Historical Commemoration to integrate Indigenous history, heritage values, and memory practices into Canada's national heritage and history. And number three, developing and implementing a national heritage plan and strategy for commemorating residential school sites, the history and legacy of residential schools, and the contributions of Aboriginal peoples to Canada's history. And with that, I'd like to just acknowledge that we are meeting on the unceded traditional territories of the Comox First Nations. Thanks, everyone. Moving on to part C of the agenda, which is the adoption of minutes. We have minutes from our board September 9th for adoption. Moved and second. Any discussion? Anyone opposed to approval? Motion carries. And we have minutes from the special meeting minutes from September 9th as well for adoption. Moved and seconded. Thank you. And any discussion on these minutes? Anyone opposed to approval? Motion carries. All right, on to section D. We have delegation follow-up from the Youth Climate Corps BC that was at our last meeting, and I'll hand it over to CA Warren for a comment.
Thank you, Chair. So as is practice, when the board receives delegations, oftentimes you'll give some consideration to their request or their topic at a subsequent meeting. And this is why this item would be on this agenda today. What I can say is that from listening to the Youth Climate Corps of BC delegation, they identified the support that they've received and the funding that they've received to be able to action some of their work. And I think that there is opportunity for the CVRD through its Rural Communities Grants Program and also through the funding that we provide to the Comox Valley Community Foundation to suggest to the Youth Climate Corps that those be two good opportunities for them to make application. And so we've done that. We've advised them of those opportunities. And if the board has any further direction, certainly would be willing to undertake that.
Great. Thank you, CA Warren. Any comments or questions, discussion from the board? Perfect. Okay, on to the next agenda item. Agenda item E, petitions and delegations. And I'd like to welcome Dave Weaver from the Beaufort Watershed Stewards, and he's going to present some information regarding the findings of the Beaufort Watershed Stewards' recent 2025 watershed assessment. So welcome. You have 10 minutes for the presentation. Welcome back to this board, and then we'll probably have some questions for you. Yes, please.
I'm live. Thank you. And thank you very much, Chair and the board. It's a privilege to be here again today. This is the third time I've presented findings from our watershed assessments from the Beaufort Watershed Stewards, and it might be my last, so we'll find out. My name is Dave Weaver. I'm past president of the Beaufort Watershed Stewards, and I'm a retired forest worker. And some people call me a retired professional forester, but I can't call myself that one. So I'm very pleased to present the findings of the most recent watershed that I've assessed, which was the Trent River Watershed Cumulative Effects Assessment. I'm also going to share today sort of a composited summary of all the watersheds, the 6 watersheds I've looked at since 2021, and also a bit of a call to action, if I may, since we're at a bit of a crossroads of me assessing watersheds. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that the watersheds that we depend on at the Beaufort Watershed Stewards are in the traditional unceded territory of the Comox, Penelech, and the Qualicum First Nations, the original protectors of these land. Now, the Beaufort Watershed Stewards are a fabulous group of high-charged, committed volunteers, and it's been such an exciting ride to have their support through all of these. And they're in the audience here today. I didn't wear the uniform, so I wouldn't look like part of the team, but I'll look a little different today. And forward is the top one? Nope, probably that one. There we go. So this is the background photograph that I want to open up my talk today, and it's very disturbing. How many people on the board have seen this photograph before? Can I see this? Not at all? One. This is actually not in the regional district. It's just over the top of the mountain from the Beaufort Mountains. You can see Comox Lake just above the T, and you can see the Strait of George. This is the Alberni Valley. This is a product of the Private Managed Forest Land Act. That's what goes on. It's not the Amazon, and anything you see in that picture is not illegal. That's actually legally okay under the Private Managed Forest Land Act. So I'm here today to show the true cost of this green gold that's going on in our region, in Vancouver Island, on Vancouver Island. First of all, the Trent River watershed, as you're familiar, it kind of runs from the top of the Beaufort to Royston. That's a map from our website, the Beaufort Watershed website. It's over 8,000 hectares. Goes from sea level to about 1,100 meters. It's a bit of a mix. About 84% is managed by the Private Managed Forest Land Act and private landholders. There's Cumberland there. North of Cumberland is mostly private land, gravel tenures in that regard. A little bit of the Cumberland Community Forest. And that little finger pointing towards the ocean is the only public managed forest land in there, which is actually managed by the Comox First Nation right now. Used to be a woodlot license. That's my report on the right-hand side that is published on our website. If you want to read the whole report, I didn't want to burden you with that, just the executive summary for this board. It's signed off by 2 registered professional foresters. I did not get funding from the regional district this year for this assessment, and the main reason was that I had to attain, I was instructed by the forest professionals of British Columbia that I had to have 2 registered, at least one registered professional forester sign off. And it was a bit of a delay that way. And it took a long time because this report's a little hot. It's not exactly what private managed forest landowners want to see. And I'm really proud and I'm really excited that 2 registered professional foresters did sign it for me. So there's no cost to that. I did all of this work by myself as a volunteer, and we did pay for the public services of the main RPF. So there's the results. Boy, I went right to the results right away, so you don't have to worry about the process. That's the document on the right-hand side. It's the 2020 Cumulative Effects Watershed Assessment put together by the province. A scientific protocol with the rigor around it has 6 indicators. If we were here a year and a half ago, there's the same 6 indicators that I assessed in the Trent. Mostly, it's a GIS analysis process. So you look at road density within close to streams, road density on steep slopes, stream crossings, all of those sensitivities are relative to hydrological health and aquatic ecosystem health, riparian disturbance, and the most complex indicator is peak flow. It has about 9 submetrics. As you can see, I've separated the ones that end up being high, road density close to streams, stream crossings, and peak flow. Those are high. So this whole protocol really is the warning light on the dash of your car. It's flashing and it's red, just like my shirt. Look at that, I even dressed the right color today. It's flashing saying that there's a problem under the hood. It's time for you to pull over, put the brakes on, and look under the hood, and maybe have a professional look at, or it would be recommended to have a professional look at the hydrological function of your watershed. You can see the road density is 3.8 kilometers per square kilometer. The threshold for high is 2.1. So almost 2 times the number of roads. When you get more roads, you get more logging. You get more logging, you get more stream crossings, and you have a higher ECA, equivalent clear-cut area. Now, I'm just going to highlight peak flow there for a minute. It's over the threshold as well. It's a ratio, so it's not really a measured value. This is the most exciting map that I was able to generate. It's kind of like the Janis Joplin feature. It shows basically the age class and the height of the logging in the Trent water system. The dark green at the very bottom says primary growth. That's the only old growth left, and it's at the very high elevation mountain hemlock, which is not desirable to log anyway. It's probably low productivity. So the lower ones, the red, which I have on again, is purple, brown, and yellow. Those are the youngest stands, and it's rated by height. And you can see that quite a grouping of them at the lower elevation around Cumberland, close to Royston. Those are the most youngest stands that haven't hydrologically recovered yet. If you want more detail, go to the report. I don't have time right now, but I just wanted to show you that really flashy colored diagram. So here we are. This is the summary of what I've looked at since 2021 in the Comox Regional District. I can't believe it. When I added it up, I've actually looked at 24,000 hectares and assessed it for hydrological health and aquatic ecosystem health. And of those 24,000 hectares, all of them come up red. All of them need to be pulled over to the side of the road and looked under the hood. And it means that professional forest hydrologist professionals should be highlighted that this is a possible risk of negative impact to hydrological and aquatic health. Now, if I separate out, there's little postage stamps of public land within these 24,000 hectares. And there they are there. They're highlighted in orange on the outline. These are managed by, actually all of them are managed by the Comox First Nation. If I apply the thresholds from the cumulative effects protocol, they come out moderate and lower. So there's a huge difference between private land management and public land management. And I like to call it the practice spectrum. Private land management, no doubt about it, is at the bottom. And the reason is you can make a lot of money when you don't have a lot of restrictions. And the main thing that's not restricted is the rate of harvest. There's no requirement for public planning process or transparency of what's going on. And there are lower standards. Those are just 3 out of about 7 that I haven't identified. Actually, UVic published a paper and identified all that. What I'm advocating is that we should be at the top. The whole province needs to look at a new Forest Act. And if you're interested in this new proposal, which we're going to be presenting to the province, is the boundaryforest.org. So to end my talk today, I have about a minute and a bit, which is great. It's a call to action to this board, if I may propose it, is to change this act now. Is it too late? I have no idea. And just to let you know, the Beaufort Watershed Stewards are members of this new community group, which is called the Vancouver Island Private Managed Forest Action Alliance. That's a really ugly handle. We'll just call them the Alliance. But it's made up of 28 grassroots environmental groups on Vancouver Island and East Side, and we're all unanimous in lobbying to get this changed. I was really proud at the last time I presented that Director Hardy made a motion, and I don't know if it went through, that I make the presentation to the MLAs who are within the regional district. And I don't know if that happened or not, but there's the 8 MLAs on the island that are impacted by the Private Managed Forest Land Act. I would love if the board here would take this on as a task. As a member of the group in the Alliance, we're willing to present the issues and propose short and long-term changes to the Act. So there's some momentum building, and it really depends if the folks in the room want to get on the right side of this photograph or on the wrong side. I think the wrong side is that everything I can see in that photograph is illegal. It was taken by J.T. Watt, and it doesn't, I should say, everything on that side in that photograph is legal. And if it's legal, it doesn't necessarily mean sustainable forestry. It's the practices that are wrong. Somebody's making a lot of money. There's a lot of gold that came out of that valley, a ton. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for all that information packed into about 10 minutes. Appreciate it.
Yep.
First question is from Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks, Dave, for the presentation, to the Beaufort Watershed Stewards for supporting this initiative. And you are coming to the north end of Area A, and I think there was discussions about doing the rest of the regional district, but I certainly realize how much time you've put into that, and I think it's enough time, indeed. You've now done assessments, 3 different assessments on the number of watersheds that all show the same thing.
Yeah.
For me, this journey started when we first talked in 2019, and at the time I was fighting for the watershed of Langley Lake. And I remember going on the field with some of the Mosaic staff, and basically they were saying, we're logging, like we'll do what we want here. And nothing has changed. And so it's been a pleasure to fund you. And I was quite disappointed that we did not have the opportunity to fund you with this latest assessment around the Trent River. I think there's those 28 groups that you mentioned, they all put in submissions, or pretty much all of them, to the Private Forest Land Act review from 2019, as did our staff team that I see here at the regional district, as did the staff team of all the regional districts up and down the island. And all we've had back from the province is absolutely nothing. And the province is as committed to do a review of the act, and the NDP has definitely failed us in a big way on the east side of Vancouver Island by sitting on their hands on the report for the last 5-6 years. It's a shame. It's shameful. And I agree with you that a presentation to the 8 MLAs would be worthwhile. I'll be quite happy to try to support that with or without a board resolution. Today, a board resolution would be great, but I think it needs to happen. We have a new minister in Mr. Parmar, and he's going around the province right now. He'll be kind of clueless, because everyone that looks at this, it's such an anomaly in BC that we have so much private lands under the act that people have a hard time. It takes them years to wrap their heads around it. So I just want to thank you for the work. I'll pass on. I don't really have a question today because the report is so comprehensive, and good on you for adding 2 RPFs to add validity. Not that anybody doubted the veracity of your work prior to, but for the rest of the board who are not used with RPFs at the regional district, we're definitely used to engineer stamp of approval and what the weight that carries. And it's very much the same thing with the RPF designation, signing off on this report. So thanks so much, Dave.
Thank you for those comments, Director Arbor. And Director Brown.
Thanks for this and for the previous presentation on the Beaufort or what the next watershed down, which now I can't think of the name of. Sable, thank you.
Sable.
And I would love to see one done for the Comox Valley watershed, including Perseverance Creek. Just adding to Director Arbor's comments, the Village of Cumberland meets with the Minister, or has met with the Minister of Forest consecutively every year at UBCM for, I'm going to say 10 years. Then we took a break because the last minister we met with, when we asked about private managed forest land, said, well, our legal team, suggests that we can't really change the act much. So that's when we were like, what are we doing here? But we're going back this year because there's a fresh minister, and we have a different ask around data sharing and access to our own watershed, which is owned by a private managed forest team. And so the advocacy is happening, and apparently it's falling on deaf ears. So thank you for continuing this work, because it gives us something to show and to demonstrate to the province that change needs to happen. And I would definitely be on board for a meeting with those MLAs.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel, too.
Thank you, Director Brown, and on to Director Grieve.
Thank you very much for all your work. It is most appreciated. Unfortunately, you're a very depressing person. But I was involved with the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities. I went through all the officer positions, became the president, past president, blah, blah. And when I first started meeting with the ministry on this, it was Minister Thompson, and it was a Liberal government. And now you say we have a new minister, it's a different political party, but what I've discovered is it doesn't matter what political party. You go into the office and you start to bring this up about the private forest lands, the eyes roll, and pretty soon thank you very much, and you're shown the door. My question is, a lot of gold was made. Well, who made the money? Because the mayor of Comox, Paul Ives, always taught me follow the money. So who made that money? What company is raking in the dough? And also, how much does the province get in stumpage fees? Do you have any idea of that?
I have an idea. It's on the back of a napkin. So it's not official at all. I can estimate and I can give you a bit of an idea.
Thumbnail.
They're a thumbnail number, and I will risk sharing it with the board, and that's okay because people have to know it. Number one is they don't pay stumpage. You have to understand that right off the bat. The private managed forest lands do not pay stumpage. They pay rent. They pay an annual rent, and it's a fixed cost. It's somewhat determined on how much they log and where they log and what kind of logging they do, but it's a fixed cost. Annual money is, oh, what the heck, I'll go for it. You got time for the back of the napkin here? So one company, and you probably don't know who I'm talking about, based on their published annual allowable cut from their certification with Sustainable Forest Initiative, they say they log 4 million cubic meters a year. If I do the math on that, based on the Vancouver log market, 2024, that the majority of its second growth, that's close to $900 million of gross income. That's quite a bit of money. If I do the net down, if you get down to what the net return would be, in taxes, they probably pay, my calculation, they pay about 65% of what property taxes would be, 68 to 69, somewhere in there, 65. So the whole, you have to appreciate the reason why private managed forest act is attractive to owners of private forest land is that they get a cut in their taxes. Not as good as farming. It's not as good as agricultural status, which is about around 20 or 10%, something around there. I'm not a farmer, but it's pretty low. But it's somewhere in between what a resident would pay for land and what they want. So that's the incentive to sign up to the Private Managed Forest Land Act. And so if I was a landowner and I committed to that, then you would get a cut in the taxes. So it's about 29 million they pay in taxes a year. That's what the province pulls in off of one landowner. Now, this is the back of a napkin. So anyway, at the end of the day, if you discount out logging costs, what they have to pay for taxes, take home's about 400 million. So it really depends on the private company that owns the property. There's one dominant owner and there's some minor owners. And I don't have the idea of the ownership of some of the minor owners, but the major owner is.
Say it.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not. You can figure it out. They're owned by the parent companies of that major company are owned by BC Investment Corp. BC Investment Corp, my pensions, I have a college pension and a government employee pension and a McMillan Bodell pension. And so those public pensions own the majority of the term. I don't understand. You can go to their website. They're called joint shares. They own the majority of joint shares in those companies that do it.
Director Green, did you have a follow-up question? I see your light's still on.
No, I'm not going to pursue this any further. I think we all know where it goes.
Okay.
So I just thought we'd try to flush that out right now, and
I'll put my napkin
because
away.
that's the
fine,
reason.
yeah.
No matter who's in that office in Victoria, you get the same bums rush.
I think you have to put it in context too. I think Daniel and Vicky Brown put it where the importance is. The private managed forest land in BC is only 5% of the operating market, of the operating land base. It's only 5%. GDP, what's the GDP of forestry? Anybody know in the room in BC?
5 million.
Pardon?
5 billion, sorry.
No, just the percent of
100%.
GDP. 2%. Yeah, it's 2%. It used to be around 40 to 50% in BC. So 5% of 2%, that's what we're talking about here. So that's, it's 0.02% or something like that. So a priority for bucks in the province, it is pretty small, but there's a lot of money made, almost $1 billion bucks a year.
Dave, we've got a couple questions online I want to make sure we get to.
Sure,
If I go
thanks.
to Director Morin, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thanks again for the presentation. I always really appreciate all the work that you do in advocacy and doing it all as a volunteer.
Yep.
So I was at one of those meetings, I believe it was maybe 2022, and maybe Director Brown has a recollection. There were several of us in the room with ministry folks, and we spoke about this, and we came as a united front, and I thought Mayor Brown did an amazing job in that meeting around just really pressing for those changes to the act. So that was, I believe, about 3 years ago. I think it's time to go back to the table for sure. I know, as Mayor Brown said, Cumberland's been going over and over and over again. I'm not going to be at UBCM this year, and I think Director Arbor alluded to possibly some action out of today, even though we don't necessarily decide on things the day of the delegation. But I guess my question is, having heard that, Cumberland has relentlessly been going to the province, we did have a fairly united front in terms of Comox Valley folks going. And I know that we have had some regional advocacy on other things like transportation, and we've had a united front in that way. And I guess my question is, what do you think what is it going to take to be heard and for action to be taken? Because we can keep going back and we can be loud voices, and I would think that perhaps we could, gather in more voices to go to the table. But I'm curious what you see as getting some kind of result. Because I think you have the will of this board to act, but it's just choosing what kind of action is going to be the most effective.
That's a tough question. I'm not a politician, but I don't know what gets people riled up or who does what. But that photograph in front of me is what motivates me, because I see 3, 4, maybe 5 time bombs sitting there. One might be water. That's the top of my list. At that rate of harvest, which is unchecked, which is unrestrained, is going to have an impact on water in some day. So somebody's going to, we're all worried about wells right now. That's going to happen. Number 2, biodiversity. Again, nobody's dying right now. Nobody's dying in the communities or anything like that. Biodiversity is a serious issue. How can you look at that photograph and say that that is a resilient biodiversity ecosystem? There's no way. And the big one which I do not wish on any community, but my goodness, if a lightning strike happens in the middle of that one, how is that going to stop? And that's what I wanted to, that's what I want politicians to listen to. I don't care how much money people are making. If that happens and you start losing people, homes, you know, I'm the chicken in the, I'm the chicken screaming and saying, hey, come on, wake up. I've heard fire behavior folk. I listen to, okay, I'll say his name, Bruce Blackwell. He's probably the best and most official fire behavior forester in BC. He said, you cannot continue to do what this photograph shows. You cannot continue to log from the beach to the top of the mountain and expect to stop a fire if it started on Vancouver Island. With climate change coming, it is not going to be if it happens, it's when it happens. So that's what I would say to do, is to just scare the living daylights out of them. Because it's going to, I hate being that kind of thing. You know, that fire in south of Port Alberni, it totally ripped. It went from 0 to 600 hectares in one evening. Like, you can probably watch it move. And a lot of it was in private managed forest land on the north side.
Thanks, Dave. I'm going to go to Director Hardy online, and then we have a question in the room as well afterwards. Go ahead, Director Hardy.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the presentation, Dave. It's Richard Hardy. Again, still would be very much interested in pursuing a meeting with Island MLAs and having you give them the presentation. So whenever we can put forward a resolution on that, we'll continue to go down that road. I also was curious with regards to the report, if it's something that could be shared. I know Mayor Vicky Brown is down at UBCM next week and talking with the Minister of Forest. So I'm just wondering if this report could be provided to the minister through Mayor Vicky Brown, if you'd be comfortable with that or not. And you don't have to give us an answer right now, but we just put that forward to you. I guess the third comment or item that I would put forward is, I know the Comox First Nation has a fairly new chief and council. It might be worthwhile going and putting a request into the Comox First Nation to provide this report to them and maybe give a presentation to them, because I think it'd be helpful if we have, you know, another 2 or 3 pokers in the fire here at the end of the day. And I know Comox First Nation, we met throughout the summer with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Minister. And we brought this issue to them as well, because, you know, not only are we worried about forests, but we're also worried about fish. And if we have these private forest managed lands harvesting right down to the water, it definitely impacts fish. So, you know, maybe we can get some support from some federal ministers as well with regards to trying to get some legislation changed here. Those are just some of my thoughts right now. Thanks.
May I respond a little bit, Chair?
Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, just in regard to the Comox First Nation, yes, we have shared everything that we have with different layers with the Comox First Nation, with the Chief's office. We've sent this report as well as my past one, as well as their forestry department. They've shared this all these reports, and we tell them that we're willing to give them a presentation or have discussion anytime. So we've reached out as best as we can possibly do in that context as well. Same with the Qualicum First Nation as well. We keep them in the loop. But they're busy folks, and I don't know quite where we'll go. You know, just to give you context, Director Hardy, that this is a report is not, it's the flashing light on the dash and you should pull over. It's not the disaster as you see. There's a high risk of potential negative impact. So it's possible that there isn't an existing negative impact. So I don't know if that sort of downscales it a little bit, but it's almost the first step in looking at a watershed. The next step is a forest hydrologist. They don't come cheap. I looked at what the what they did in the Gibson's area. They looked at 2,000 hectares and they hired a hydrologist and followed the protocol. And for 2,000 hectares, you know how much that cost? $160,000. And at the end of the day, it was like, no, it looks okay. So it's a bit of a risk.
Okay, next question, alternate director Wells.
Thanks so much, Chair. I mean, about 11 years ago, a few people convinced me to run for office, and one of the first things, Director Greenboy, I think over there, got me chair of the Water Committee in the middle of a boil water notice, and one of the really challenging things when you learn about in detail about our watershed and it being privately owned is that technically everything they were doing, as you have said repeatedly, is legal and totally fine. But having reports like this are the things that can be helpful. And just again, for context, we've been talking about UBCM. I believe on Monday there will be a forum happening around economic development, and it likely won't have this information at it. I'm quite convinced of that. Having said that, because they'll be coming, I would believe, from a different perspective. Having said that, though, and it's obviously too late for this year, but getting this information to groups like us, I think, is useful. But there may be some opportunities to do that, potentially at a UBCM next year or at ABICC, which is regional on Vancouver Island, because it's the data that's going to help make us make decisions amongst ourselves, but then we can really hopefully in a very articulated way lobby our provincial counterparts. And again, it's tough because the question of balance is a tough one, especially when, well, I'm not sure where the deficit is at this moment in time, but when they're dealing with deficits, that changes the argument as well. But really appreciate all the information here, and hopefully, again, having that MLA and I would say MLA and ministers meetings, and then looking at things like ABICC on Vancouver Island and UBCM for next year.
Great. So I don't see any other questions. Dave, I just want to say a big thank you for the presentation, all the work hours that you've spent on this passion, and also for entertaining all of our questions. So thank you so much for coming and for everyone that came to support you. And we'll move on. I don't see any other lights to our next item on the agenda.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of next item, we have reports, and we have 9 of them. So we're going to start with the Comox Valley Sewerage Service Development Cost Charge revised update. Perfect. And over to staff.
Thank you, Chair. Crystal Rose is our Senior Manager of Water Wastewater Services. Chris will be introducing this update to the proposed development cost charges. Chris.
Thank you, James, and through the chair, good afternoon, everyone. So this report has been brought directly to the board rather than the commission, as we weren't quite able to get it ready in time for last week's agenda. And as I'll highlight in a moment, we're really keen to keep moving on this one. At their June meeting, the Sewage Commission approved amendments to the DCC bylaw for this service and directed staff to engage with the development community. Courtney, Comox, and Cumberland are each undertaking updates to their development cost charges as well. And all local governments have collaborated to make our approaches and definitions as consistent as possible to help developers navigate the process across jurisdictions. So in light of this collaboration, we chose to support municipal engagement with the public and developers rather than undertake separate engagement. And that happened in late July. It was very well attended. We had 50 plus people attend the event. Many of them expressed concern about the scale of the increases and the impact these will have on development in the valley. In early August, Comox chose to update their development projections, a small update, and in late August, Courtney notified us of a change to their industrial and commercial projections. The net change to our proposed development cost charge is a very slight increase from the previous rates that were brought through in June, but we felt it was important to update them to maintain consistency. We understand that Courtney and Comox are not planning to bring forward their bylaws until later in the fall. And the potential does exist that there could be changes from either of those jurisdictions. However, the financial capacity of the service is being stretched really thin by the massive capital spending that's underway and planned. So we desperately need to increase our development cost charge revenue, the rates and the revenue that will flow from those increases. So our recommendation is to proceed today with rescinding the third reading and then replace it with the updated bylaw. If approved, then we'll immediately initiate the engagement with the province with the aim of getting these rates in place as soon as possible. That's it for me, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none, this is a vote of Courtney, Comox, and Area A. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries of receipt, and then there's a recommendation. Okay, that was Grant and Brown, and discussion on the recommendation. Okay, and again, a vote of Courtney, Comox, in Area A only. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right. Perfect. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Moving on to report number 2, the annual transit improvement program, and back to Sayo Warren.
Thank you. And Mike Zabarski is our manager of transit and fleet. And Mike will be introducing this report.
Thanks through the CAO and the chair to the board. I've got a presentation here lined up. So this is an annual thing we do every year, the Transit Improvement Program. And it's where BC Transit provides us with a recommendation on service improvements over a 3-year period for our consideration. And we then have to make a commitment on that first year only. We use the Transit Future Action Plan, which was completed in 2022, to guide those investments, and the recommendations from BC Transit are aligned with that plan. As I mentioned, we just need to make that commitment on that first year. Years 2 and 3 are included for kind of information only, just to give the board a bit of a sense of what's coming soon and what kind of service improvements we might be looking at in the next few years. The funding for these expansions, based on today's direction, would be included in our upcoming financial plan. So these service improvements are that are included in the Transit Improvement Program will make the transit system more convenient and easier to use for those that rely on public transportation, either today or those that will rely on it in the future. The private automobile is the number 2 household expense annually every year, and transit is a much more affordable option to help ease cost of living pressures that we're seeing in the community. The private automobile is also the number 1 largest source of greenhouse gas emissions within the Comox Valley. And there are plans from CBRD and the member municipalities that include strong targets to increase transit use and sustainable modes in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Transit improvements identified here will also help connectivity with other modes of transportation, especially active transportation modes. A number of infrastructure projects are underway or recently completed, where there will be good connectivity with these service improvements. And the service improvements will also help connect in with the new shared micromobility services, which now include scooters and electric bikes. The Comox Valley Mobility Primer, kind of another key guiding document for this, is aimed to help us achieve that mode share and help provide some insights on how to do that. It recommends an increased investment in public transit, as well as other higher quality active transportation infrastructure, repurposing roadways for other modes, and removing incentives to the private automobile, including free parking. Improved transit also helps support a number of our housing goals at CVRD and member municipalities. There's a strong relationship between convenient and accessible transit and housing. And finally, these improvements will continue to drive our ridership growth. We're currently at about 900,000 rides a year. And that's about a 50% increase over the last 10 years. So these are on the screen here, the recommendations from BC Transit for that first year of service improvements. These will be implemented in January 2027 if approved. And these are all from the Transit Future Action Plan. So the big one is the conventional transit service, 7,575 hours, which includes 5 additional buses. This would go to provide additional frequency on route number 1, which is our highest use transit route, serves the densest parts of our community. A number of those hours would also go to provide additional frequency and fill some gaps on route number 2 and route number 20, which serve between Courtenay and Cumberland. Route 20 goes via Royston as well, up to Cumberland. Just a note on that one that we did get approval from the board last year to put this one forward for consideration, and unfortunately the province, as part of their cost sharing of these, was unable to support that particular service improvement. So it's backed for consideration this year. A small number of hours is also recommended for on-time service improvement. We have additional cars on the road every year, about 840 or so every year, that are clogging up the roads, and transit is not immune to that congestion. And so it's this additional trip time, these additional hours will help the trip time be a little bit more reliable. So it's just recognizing that each trip is now taking a little bit longer and our schedules are becoming unreliable. And then finally, for conventional service, we would be looking to extend service to all of the stat holidays. We currently provide service on 3 of them: May Day, which I think is Victoria Day, Canada Day, and BC Day. And so we would be looking to do transit service at a moderate level to every stat during the whole year. Also shown here is 2,100 hours of service for the Handy Dart system. This would include extending to all of the stat holidays to align with conventional transit, and most critically to provide some additional peak weekday service. We're seeing about 30 new Handy Dart applications every month, and we're already at a point where we're having to turn down a lot of trip requests that existing Handy Dart users are trying to make. So the system is full and needs an investment. From a funding perspective, CVRD is just required to provide a commitment on that first year of expansions. The total cost of those expansions identified is about $1.6 million, and CVRD's share is about $778,000. Our share could be funded through increased requisition and or reserves, plus the additional fare revenue that we would see through the recent fare amendments that are coming online in January, as well as the additional ridership that would come with these service improvements. After we submit our commitment, BC Transit takes our commitment and all of the other communities across BC and provides that request through the province for consideration as part of their budget early in the following year. Unfortunately, in the recent past couple of years, the province has not been able to support our full requests. The requests across the province have exceeded their budgets, and so we've had to consider smaller or partial funding scale down expansions. So for example, the route number 5 expansion that's coming online this upcoming January, or the board requested 5,000 hours of service, and we were only able to get provincial cost sharing for 3,000 hours on Route 5. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I see Director Hardy online has a question. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I know I'm coming to the table a bit late here, but I had expressed issues with regards to transit service going to CFB Comox. And I know yesterday Chair Cole Hamilton and myself, the CAO, had a brief meeting with Colonel Shapka at 19 Wing. And he did express a desire, a need for more transit service heading up to CFB Comox. Again, the mentality of our military personnel going across Canada right now is we're going into wartime mobilization, and they would like to see transit service being deemed an essential service going to 19 Wing. So I just flag it. I know it's not something that we can figure out today, but I would like to see some type of a resolution moving forward with regards to how we try and address CFB Comox and the needs for their military personnel and staff up at the wing there to accommodate them with regards to transit getting up to 19 Wing. Thanks.
Mike, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, no problem. We're happy to meet with CFB Comox. I think we've got, James has connected me with a key person there. So we're going to be meeting with CFB personnel soon and trying to understand what their needs are. A number of years ago, the board did support an expansion of service to provide kind of a commuter link to CFB Comox for their main shift times. And yeah, I'd be keen to hear what they're looking for moving forward, and we can come back to the board at a future date with some analysis around that, possibly something for consideration in next year's TIPS process.
Thanks, Director Arbor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll be supporting the two recommendations, but I do have a little bit of feedback looking to the next year. I do want to support Director Hardy. I think the number 12 bus serves other functions as well, such as like our airport is badly connected to the municipality, and it's a bus every couple of hours. It's not great for what has become really a regional airport, and so I think it also connects Powell River Ferry, so it serves multiple functions. And for Area B, that is their bus, and they pay into it, and they should see a little bit more volume. I'm just not sure. I agree with you to do the analysis and what you've done in the past. I'm not sure CFB Comox is going to be the ridership driver. I actually think the airport might actually be a little better if we have more regular service there. But nonetheless, improvements number 12 would be good. For Area C and Area A, I still. I mean, we had the BC Transit here, and they did admit that they are not putting a huge amount of effort on the interregional transit, which would support our runs in Area A and Area C. And so I'd like to see some movement by next year, for us to actually make a small strategic plan around that one and how we're going to invest in it. And lastly, I think the 5,000 hours for Number one is a huge success. The city of Courtenay, thank you, because they're aligning their OCP with our number one bus, or vice versa. But everything makes sense there. Comox is just coming to the table finally with their new OCP and added density along number one bus as well, which is the corridor that I guess Transit this board identified years ago, which is where development would likely occur. But now it's actually going to occur there, so it's great. One last thing, if I can share. Because my teenagers are in the midst of like becoming completely bus dependent, and that 14 to 16-year-old right now when they're in town, I did hear quite a lot through them and their friends about last Friday, the 99 not running at all, and to Vanier, and I was appalled as a board member. I was like, there's only one bus that picks up all these kids at Vanier and does a run for them. And that's one of our most successful bus per ridership, as we know, along with the number one. And everybody got stranded, and all the parents and I'm like, couldn't you just divert to number one, from the 15 minutes to service what all these teenagers are counting on? So just a small short-term disappointment, but I thought I told my kids I would throw it in the air, so I did. Thank you.
Thanks for that advocacy work, Director Arbor. Mike, do you want to respond?
Yeah, I mean, we can add as many service hours of Route 99 as you'd like to see. We're unfortunately in a bit of a labor shortage situation still with the transit operating company, and I know they get some last minute cancellations that are extremely impactful, especially when it's on something like a Route 99 where there's only one trip in the morning, one trip in the afternoon. In regards to the Route 11 that serves the airport and the ferry, and the base, it definitely is something that we could look at kind of from all of those destinations. We wouldn't just focus on CFB Comox. And it does serve a number of those Area B rural neighborhoods as well. So yeah, I think we can look at that more holistically for sure.
Director Brown?
Thanks. I don't have a child pushing me to say this, but I do have young people in Cumberland curious about a more efficient route to North Island College. So does number 12 also do that? Am I getting the number right?
Not route
12
number
the good?
12, but from Cumberland down into Courtney, you can take 2 or 20, and then it would be connecting on to route number 1 probably would be the best option to
Okay.
get up to the college. And
So it's the connections
frequency of
maybe
route
that
number
are
1 is quite good, but that frequency of route number
of
2
two.
right now isn't.
Yeah.
So those connections don't always work for
Yeah.
people's schedules. And I think with this service improvement that we're proposing here for the
For number
1,800
two.
hours for route number 2, those are the things that we can do to, improve that services, use those hours to make that connection better up to college.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Director McCollum?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the report. Yeah, I'm supportive of what's being proposed. But my concern around the number of cancellations continues. I mean, I think we've been having a pretty regular service disruptions now for a number of years, and the reasons for that maybe shift from the contractor over time, but it would be really useful to have a sense of whether or not it's actually improving or not. And I did bring it up at the last BC Transit presentation, and I think I'll probably just continue to bring it up until we get some regular reporting on it. I don't know if it's a requirement with the contract, but I'm sure that there is a system in place that we could know how many routes are being canceled. If you don't catch the bus very often and the one time you do it, it's not there. It seems like it's all the time, but maybe for folks that are catching it regularly, it's happening less often. And then to that point, it would be great to see our hours expanded, but if we're not running our routes regularly because we don't have enough staff, it doesn't really make sense to add hours. I would rather us focus on reliability of the system first. So I am in support of the recommendation, but I do think we have a bigger issue at hand, and that's reliability. And, if it's like, 0.01% of operating hours, then, maybe it's just a bit of a squeaky wheel thing. But, if there is a significant portion or, a regular portion of routes not going, then I think that is maybe where we should be focusing our resources. Thanks.
Yeah, I can provide a bit of a response. It is a problem for sure. And I have seen stats. There is regular reporting on how many trips are canceled. They're not a huge percentage, but they're super impactful to a number of people that rely on transit. So I think, 5 or so percent is kind of what we're losing out on right now. And doesn't sound like a lot maybe, but when it's the trip you need to get to work or school, it's a huge impact. So we're trying to work very hard with BC Transit to lean on the operating company to make improvements with their recruiting. I have seen evidence of that. They have a number of new drivers that are being trained at the moment, and have been, some of them have already been hired and are on the job. So I think over the past couple of months, I've noticed quite an improvement. Summer's always a hard time with vacations on top of last minute illnesses and things like that. So we'll see how things go over the next few months. So I'm optimistic. I also would note that our operating company has changed hands. The parent company is a much larger public transit corporation that has, I think, some better resources in the recruitment department. So I'm again optimistic that will bear fruit. And we can definitely lean on BC Transit to provide some more regular reporting to the board on that as well.
Sorry, I turned my mic off, but yeah, I just wanted to respond. Yeah, I don't know what the contractual obligations there are and if there are penalties, but honestly, 5%, if 5% of the time I needed to get to work and I didn't get there on time, like that's not a reliable service for people to use for their jobs. So it gets, and then people use the transit system less because they don't know for sure that they can get to work on time. So to me, that number is unacceptable. And it would be also useful to know, was it 8% 2 years ago or was it 3% 2 years ago? I don't know if we're improving on that or not. And it strikes me that if, the contract that's in place, there's no real repercussions for under delivering on reliability. There's a financial incentive there for the contractor to carry less employees. It's less training. It's less logistics. So I think that there needs to be more thought and attention on this. And I don't know if our system is worse or better than elsewhere, but I mean, we are investing a lot of public dollars into making a good transit system here. And if once a week, a return trip or a 2 trip, you're not getting to where you need to go, that's not any good to me. So yeah, anyway, thanks for your information on that.
Great comments. Question from Director Hardy online. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And again, just like to reemphasize the importance of the transit service getting up to CFB Comox. And I know a comment was put forward with regards to ridership. And in this particular instance, talking with the wing commander yesterday, he would really like to see transit service being deemed an essential service, and that ridership, although it is important, whether it's one person or 10 people or 100 people, 19 Wing would really like to see that service deemed an essential service. So hopefully, Mike, when you're meeting up with CFP Comox over the next month or so, that that message is again reaffirmed to you as well. Thanks.
I'm seeing head nods on this side of the room. Director Hardy, thank you. Alternate Director Wells, and then I have a question after that.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, I think, just last week, talking with the base around projects and things that they're doing, maybe I'll just throw in they're going to be doing their air show May 23rd, 2026. And again, they made the recommendation that they chat to the regional district around transit. But yeah, I mean, if we go back, my experience about 10 years ago, we talked about that rapid transit corridor, and really put I think some investment into it, and I think the ridership definitely improved. But if we look at the past couple of years, we're trying to build trust in that ridership, and it's so difficult to build that trust. Director McCollum, I mean, made the point. I mean, if I couldn't get to work on time 5% of the time because of my car or my bicycle or whatever, I'm sure my employer would not be particularly happy about that. And so, as an employer, to make sure that again that they have enough staffing, that if there are contingencies that happen, that they have those backup drivers. So it's not even just about having enough drivers, but it's having those backup drivers and having that deep well to be able to call on. And as it turns out, I'm part of the bus transit system here with the school buses, and am quite aware of how they work with having backup drivers. And so hopefully, like you said, this new contractor is potentially got better systems in place to deal with it. But getting back to those reports, I think having it, if not once a year, maybe even twice a year, having those reports to say what those cancellation numbers are, along with ridership numbers, because I think that's been the metric, is what's the ridership, but knowing what those metrics are of cancellations, I think is quite critical, and I would say would be great to be shared beyond this board, because it's something that will affect the village of Cumberland, town of Comox as well. So, and city of Courtenay, which is my other hat. So I think getting those metrics out on some sort of regular basis would be quite useful. And I think I heard Director McCollum actually say it might be good to get a bit of a snapshot of, you know, a period from 3 years ago or so, or some period, so we can kind of see what it looks like over the past 3 years as we start hopefully seeing these numbers on a more regular basis. Thanks.
Great. Do you have a comment?
I think, you know, all good points, and
Okay.
we can definitely, I can definitely relay the concern from the board along with our, you know, commitments to any expansions. One thing I wanted to just say about the spare bus driver, there are a number of spare bus drivers in the operating company. And one of the things I have heard is that it's sometimes hard to get spare drivers because you don't have enough hours to give them. They want, you know, close to full-time work. So hoping that maybe this investment is one of the things that helps make it a more attractive job opportunity for people.
Great. I have a question. Just as my perpetual question about the chicken and egg scenario of build it or ridership or which comes first. So just curious about the 50% increase in ridership, which is awesome to hear, and the 38% expansion in service. And they're associated, we don't know cause and effect. Is that like a typical, if you look at other regions or even the past of regional district, 50% to 40%, does that kind of like match what other regions see when they increase service by 40%? Would you expect ridership to go up 50%, or is that within much higher than norms, below norms? I'm just curious. And if you don't know the answer, we can chat offline another time. Just curious.
Yeah, I don't know how it looks in other communities, but I will say that we do get annual reporting on the performance of our service, our system versus other communities, and our system does perform really well compared to our peer, you know, middle, medium kind of size communities. So I think we would probably be getting a slightly higher return on investment because we're doing really good with our public transit. We're making good investments, and you know, it's resulting in good ridership. So that's driving our performance stats as well as the ridership stats.
Great. Perfect. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Could I get a motion for receipt? Okay, any further discussion or questions? Anyone opposed to receipt? Motion carries. Okay, we have two recommendations. Would someone like to McCollum and Wells, and any further discussion on recommendation number one, which is with regard to the 7,575 service hours for routes 1, 2, and 20. Okay, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we have Grieve and Wells for number 2, and that's the Handy Dart 2,100 additional hours. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Any further discussion? Yes, we have. Director McCollum, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to put forward an additional motion related to the reliability based on the discussion that we've had. I did just send a draft, which I already see has a typo in it to Lisa. But I'll just read it out, that staff, or that the CBRD board directs staff to work with BC Transit to create an action plan to track and improve reliability of the Comox Valley Transit service.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Director Moore. Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Anything further on transit? Okay, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Okay, on to report number 3. This is the Comox Valley Regional District Fiscal Sustainability Framework and Strategy. And again, over to CIO Warren.
Thank you. And I'd like to introduce Lucy Wacharek, our Chief Financial Officer, who will be introducing this report. There's no recommendation associated with this report, but we wanted to introduce the approach to developing this framework and strategy. It's something that's core to what Lucy has been undertaking in her time here. And it really reflects on all the different matters and priorities within the finance department, and that, of course, then underpin the work of the CBRD. So Lucy, you've got a PowerPoint here to share with the board, and turn it over to you.
Thank you so very much. Good evening, and through the CAO and the chair and directors, Financial Services is here today just to bring forward that introduction to our sustainability framework, and we've got a bit of a preliminary roadmap as well. This body of work began with the direction provided through the board through the 2023 to 26 strategic plan, and I'm thankful that I'm able to officially launch the framework and strategy within the current term of this board. So what do we mean when we talk about fiscal sustainability, and why is it important to do this work? Fiscal sustainability refers to the enduring ability of the local government to ensure that it can deliver the level and types of services expected by the community while proactively managing our risks at acceptable levels of taxation and fees. Through the training and research to date, staff find that the word sustainability continues to encompass many factors important in today's environment and is directly aligned with the board's drivers for resilient services, climate change, and environmental stewardship. Local governments play a significant role in bringing citizens quality of life, and as a local government, we are closest to the public. We are best to be able to understand and address our community's unique needs. The CVRD delivers essential services of water, sewage treatment, and solid waste management. And as well, we support well-being through the delivery of many other services in establishing supportive, vibrant communities. Fiscal sustainability is necessary for reliable service delivery. However, expert bodies continue to raise concerns over the ongoing financial condition of our local governments and the potentially debilitating effects future economic downturns could have on finances and public services. By ensuring we have a solid financial foundation and rethinking how we plan and budget, we will be better able to face today's complex environment. In purposely moving forward to achieve sustainability, the opportunity exists to develop greater agility and new approaches to address changing community needs. There are two major areas for which the framework will focus, one being corporate governance and second, putting in place foundational best practices. In this slide, this slide shows the components of governance. The purpose of corporate governance is to guide the conduct of a company and refers to how an organization manages, leads, and ensures oversight. So when effectively used, governance works to mitigate risk and it ensures the entity's longevity and success. There are 8 key components as listed. While not 8 of these areas are relevant to a fiscal framework and strategy, however, significant portions are reflected in foundational elements. The CVRD has lots of governance in place. However, to address the current needs and changing expectations, it's necessary to conduct reviews and realign governance. Putting in place good governance involves comprehensively addressing the 5 core functions as shown on the right side of the stage of the slide. And there'll be many ties you'll see to the areas of policies, processes, and performance in the framework. The purpose of today's report and presentation is just to provide that brief, that overview of what's included in the framework and how we envision getting there, and we'd like your feedback. Financial Services has set intentions to move forward with reaching and maintaining fiscal sustainability through the pursuit of best practice, improving our communication channels, having collective decision-making process, and establishing standard processes. The framework and strategy will be not unlike many other framework strategy bodies of work that have recently been received by the board. It will be made up of the board's defined principles. The principles will guide the development of strategies, and policies will support those strategies and the principles. So up first, we will be working with the board to develop fiscal principles. What you are seeing here on the screen represents the typical words and phrases within such principles. And this data here has been gathered from work that UBCM has put out in this space, as well as principles used by other local governments across around us and those across the country. The various principles chosen are important and they'll be reflective of what is most important to this board, considering this organization's current conditions and the state of our community. The initial work done to date leads staff to 5 areas of focus for strategy development, and this includes advancements through a balanced approach, ensuring that we're looking to the long term, however, balancing that with what the short-term needs are. Improved decision-making, corporate alignment through good governance, communication, trust and transparency, climate change, and risk management. The picture on the right gives directors an idea of the various types of policies being considered for development and/or update. And the roadmap will include systematically bringing policy forward for the board's consideration. Regardless of not launching the overall framework, staff have been working on this initiative and have taken a risk-based approach to what has been accomplished. A number of new and updated policies have been delivered to the board. As an essential part of fiscal sustainability, lots of focus has been applied to the advancement of the asset management program. Next month, the board will be presented with the most recent accomplishment in this area and a key component, and that being the asset management strategy. I just wanted to add just a quick note just to let directors know the basis of development. We do look to the International Association of Government Finance Officers for best practice guidance, as well as our local chapter, GFOA BC and UBCM. They're great resources and have been, and I know will continue to be great supports for us as we move forward. So also local government research as well, and learning from those that are more advanced than us in this space. The initial roadmap expects that we will have framework and document completed by next year. That's our current goal. And after that, we'll focus on implementation. And the next slide, I just have a bit more in depth to bring clarity to what our next steps are. At the October 21st meeting, staff would like to return and have the board develop principles. Staff will advance the implementation of our asset management strategies. We will plan to engage with various stakeholders, including staff from our municipal partners and third-party experts. We'll continue to be drafting the strategies and key policies. A public communication plan will be prepared. We will return to the board. We're expecting that on October 21st that you'll have draft policies. We are currently planning to come back in March of next year. That's shortly after budget has been completed to request and further discuss and request endorsement of those principles. And finally, as I mentioned, to have the full framework and strategy done and ready for presentation to the board in June of next year. And with that, we're certainly look forward to your input, feedback, and we'll attempt to the best of our ability to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Lucy. Any questions or comments? Don't see any online or in the room. Okay, Director Arbour. There you go.
Yeah, thanks. This feels very high level for a presentation to me. So I find it hard to kind of action it is for information. But I think there's a few pockets that I read of things that we've talked about like 5 years ago, but some things that don't necessarily get picked up either by the board. But for example, when we talked about a land acquisition strategy that is corporate and full in nature, as opposed to go like project by project, because we have various needs. It feels like there's a few roadmaps we're still missing on the fiscal side and in anticipating needs and being able to be strategic in a more proactive manner rather than reactive. So anyways, I don't have concerns about anything that was mentioned, but I just felt it was still, I realize it's a framework, so it's still fairly high level. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Lucy. Oh,
All I would say is
yeah.
that intentionally, it was meant to be high level and as an introduction to the framework and strategy work that Lucy's group has been undertaking. At subsequent board meetings, there will be some deeper dives into the content and into some of the principles and looking for some more direct feedback. So this was meant to be a bit of a sampler, a bit of an overview, and any feedback today would be great, but we'll be coming back to board at future meetings where we'll be asking for a deeper dive. So,
All right, could I entertain a motion for receipt? Okay, I heard Grieve and Wells. Any further discussion or questions? All right, anyone opposed for receipt? All right, moving on to the next topic. Thank you very much. Report number 4, Board Strategic Communications Priorities. Again, over to CAO Warren.
thank you very much. And Jennifer Steele is our Manager of Communications and Engagement, and will be presenting this report. It is a follow-up to your June 2025 strategic planning session, where you had a dedicated approach to some proactive communication strategies. So Jennifer, over to you.
Thank you through the CAO to the chair, and thank you for having me here today. So as a recap, in June, we had a feedback session where we kind of worked through what's important to you for the next year. And in that session, it was identified housing, capital projects, financial planning, asset management, recreation, emergency management, climate action, and parks were the top priorities for proactive communications. We also completed a similar exercise with our electoral area service committee, and their priorities are actually being built into their annual strategic planning, their engagement strategy. So just wanted to identify that they were not missed and they'll have their own pieces covered. So increased communication efforts will be coordinated on specific timeframes throughout the year. We wanted to be able to maximize the resources and the impact and the costs. For capital projects and climate action initiatives, we're going to continue to communicate on those projects throughout the year as the milestones happen. It just makes more sense than having it in a set time period. The goals that we have and that you brought forward for this were to proactively tell our story to the community on current projects and initiatives that are supporting a high quality of life for residents and the community well-being, provide education on the CVRD services, priorities, and values to residents, interest groups, and partners in a transparent, engaging, and consistent way, helping to strengthen our public trust and participation, promote key project and service wins within the region to help build awareness and support. So we try to include some new ways for us to communicate. And we are going to be increasing staff time within the community. You might have seen that within the plan. And also we're going to try and test out some advertorials with some local publications to reach a different audience on some of our, to tell the story. And also look at using some social media and online stories to really create the impact with some of the residents, especially for recreation services. How have, our recreation facilities and services helped you in your day-to-day life? So any questions?
Great, I love the idea of storytelling. That's great. Any questions around the table? Any online? Oh, Director Moran online, please go ahead.
Great, thank you so much. I love this idea. I love how you've responded to some of the things that we've talked about. I guess, we've talked about many challenges with communication, obviously, the disinformation and misinformation out there and how you work with that. And I love the idea about highlighting the projects and finding ways to tell the story and to illustrate the benefit of many of the projects. So I guess what I'm wondering about, which I thought I saw somewhere in the report, but then I couldn't find it again, was I know that all the communications folks are connecting with each other. I mean, recently I was at a conference and I talked to our communications people to get a bit of information for a panel I was on. And I know that in that conversation, it was mentioned that all of you work together. And I guess I'm just wondering if there wasn't really anything necessarily in the report, but if you're able to speak to kind of the where strategic priorities align, whether it's with Town of Comox or City of Courtenay, Cumberland, whatever, if there's more opportunities to kind of align some of those communication strategies or work together as kind of a united front. Like I'm thinking about some of our active transportation goals that we're meeting across the region and how we're all doing our own communication. That's one example how we could really highlight some of those things in a more regional way. And I understand this would take the other municipalities, also coming on board with that.
So what I can say is that our communications group locally, we're actually quite tightly knit and we work very closely, especially for information officers for their emergency management service. And we do meet regularly. It's more giving them an update of the projects that are happening in each jurisdiction and our local government. But we do tag each other in posts and things online and share it to our followers to help increase the reach on things. We haven't necessarily sat down on active transportation, for example, and been like, okay, well, how can we amplify this message together a little bit more? That could be something in the future that we look to do when time and resourcing aligns, but we definitely do connect regularly with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe that's something that we can talk about, as a board at some point around, perhaps looking at those opportunities. Thanks.
Thanks, Director Morin. On to alternate director Joel Leclerc.
Thanks, Chair. And thanks for the report. I just want to kind of reiterate Director Morin's comments. I think there's a lot of opportunity to continue to amplify the regional messaging that's coming out of each of the municipalities. A few of us were at FCM in June, where the topic of communication was a plenary and then multiple workshops, actually. And what we heard clearly was if you're not paying, no one's listening. And so my first question, I have, I think, two questions, was around the section on the budget. Because at the City of Courtenay, we've also had conversations, as Director Morin has articulated, around communications. And so in each of the sections, the topic areas, and I think you've mentioned in the report 10 to 20,000 in total based on other projects and operational budgets, but kind of curious what percentage or what amount is actually paid ads on social media.
The CVRD actually, I don't know if you're aware, we don't do any online Facebook boosted posts anymore. A decision was made back in the, I guess, late spring to move off of boosted Facebook posts, given a lot of changes that were happening online and the amount of negative commentary that were coming from those posts. So we've been investing, and I might as well give you an update on this, a lot more in face-to-face and local publications versus the online Facebook advertising. We still do on occasion do Google ads, or we have the opportunity for YouTube ads. We have found though, since we have removed our Facebook boosted posts and our advertising, our followers have increased. So people now know that they have to follow us if they actually want the information versus us serving them the ads. And whether they see it and read it or not, or just scan it, is another story. So our followers have gone up since we made that decision to move off of the paid promotion, the pay to play.
Yeah, thanks. And I do like the articulation of some of the local media, supporting local, I think is helpful. My second question, if I can, Chair, is just specifically about the housing in the fall topic. Obviously, we travel and we speak to our colleagues across the province. We have a very unique, and I know the Vice Chair was involved and others in the development of the Coalition to End Homelessness. It's a unique group in the province and one that has had a huge generative force for addressing homelessness in the community. And I appreciate that there's a good news story on agencies supporting housing needs. So I'm just curious how you're planning to work with the coalition, because every housing provider and folks who are working to address homelessness are at that table. And those good news stories happen on a regular basis. So just wanting to hear how we might work with our partners in the coalition for this area.
Do you want me to answer that, Jake? So for the good news story, right now, we wanted to highlight the fact at a high level that we wanted to work with the partner agencies to really show how are they creating impact in the community. The specific agencies. Okay.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. Yeah. So it's working directly with the coalition. This work is not commenced yet. This is the plan that has been outlined in this staff report here. And so that's work to be undertaken. The main substance of that housing item is as the board directed around the housing corporation, which is actively under development. So that's the primary focus, but we want to also recognize that there's been lots of good work happening over the years through the coalition and otherwise.
Thanks for that. And on to Director Arbor.
Yeah, I'm glad that Dr. Jellicoe brought up the housing, and I think it's going to be crucially important for us how we do that work and how we present it, both for the corporation, but also acknowledging not only the history, but obviously the continuation with the coalition. So, but again, because he talked about that, I guess we can probably send you feedback directly other than the report out. But on the climate action, I would like not to have the Royston multi-use trail, for example, mentioned, because it's very much about safety. I don't think it's going to increase the number of kids for that small section around Royston School, and I don't want people to associate the two. A better use, I think, regionally would be to highlight our decarbonization strategy at the Rec Commission and some big moves in how we're trying to address corporate emissions, which are difficult stories to tell. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Nothing online? All right, could I have entertain a motion for receipt? And any further discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, motion received, or report received. And now there's a recommendation to endorse the proposed communication strategies, moved by Grant, seconded by Grieve. Any further discussion or questions? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, 4 reports down, 5 to go. On to number 5, the Island Rail Corridor Clearing Request. And again, over to CA Warren.
Thanks, Chair. Jake Martins, General Manager of Corporate Services, is going to introduce this report. It comes on the heels of a delegation presentation from the Island Corridor Foundation. Jake, over to you.
Thank you, James. Through the chair. Yes, so this report follows up on that delegation that was received on August the 12th, in which the Island Corridor Foundation put forward a request for the CVRD to fund a $200,000 vegetation clearing program in the northern segment of the Island Rail Corridor. The stated purpose of that clearing was to primarily focus on mitigating wildfire risks and to improve emergency access in the event that there is a wildfire in that area. The request also follows the ICF's receipt and expenditure of a $600,000 grant that they received from the Ministry of Transportation to support corridor maintenance. And as it was outlined in the delegation, those funds were expended given the many years of neglect, essentially, in the corridor from Victoria up north towards Courtenay, but they did not allow for a more fulsome clearing within our area. So hence their request to us. Staff have outlined in the report 3 main considerations with respect to this request, and the first being the proposed funding arrangement. In this case, Island Corridor has made the ask for the CVRD to solely fund this clearing program within the northern segment. As a member-based entity, the ICF has put forward a number of sort of shared funding arrangements in the past for both asset renewal and replacement, as well as staffing resources to support various initiatives. We feel a similar kind of approach would be appropriate in this case, and we've outlined that reason there. The second area of consideration is the wildfire risks that they've identified, and while the CVRD does provide fire protection and emergency management services, we are not the authority or the experts on wildfires, and BC Wildfire certainly is. We have not sought to engage BC Wildfire around this ask, given that it is still very much wildfire season, and we do not want to distract those resources from what they're busy doing right now. But it is worth mentioning that we've noted in this report that the local Fire Smart program has identified the corridor as a potential project of focus and to seek grant funding associated with that. And so they are exploring eligibility for that right now, but I don't have confirmation on that at this moment. The last area that we've identified or given consideration to is the sort of funding use and availability associated with this. And the Island Corridor Foundation identified the opportunity for the CVRD to fund this using the $600,000 grant, which we received for the shared vision project. There's also, well, I should say before I move on that while there is funding available for that through that grant program, that would essentially largely use the bulk of the funding available to us, and staff certainly see opportunity given our progress with that project to potentially utilize that funding for other needed study work or other beneficial work that could support implementing the shared vision should we arrive at one. The last item just around funding I'll note is that there is another pocket of funding available, which the board will recall, which is the funds that were requisitioned a number of years ago for corridor rehabilitation. They were not expended at that time, and so those have been sitting in the general reserve account and collecting interest for a number of years. So there's about $450,000 sitting there. But again, in staff's opinion, this is a good opportunity in which if we can arrive at a shared vision for the corridor, that could serve as an important seed money to use to make important improvements that we know are going to be needed. So based on these considerations, we're recommending that the board write to the ICF to propose a shared and equitable funding arrangements amongst regional district members, and that also that the ICF consult with BC Wildfire just around those considerations and how the corridor can best benefit any sort of wildfire mitigation considerations. With that, Mr. Chair, I'm pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you for the report. And first up is alternate director Wells.
Thanks very much, Chair. And yeah, I think the recommendation makes relatively good sense. I mean, it seems a bit odd that, they were given money to, do works amongst the entire corridor and then got to us and said, basically, oops, we ran out of money. That seems fairly onerous to say, all the other regional districts were able to benefit from this except for ours. And that doesn't, like, our regional district, this area didn't do anything wrong. This is sort of squarely on the shoulders of ICF and how they managed this project. So definitely see this as something of them going back and saying, like, everybody should contribute to the amount that to complete the project as a whole, rather than just carving this off and saying we'll let the CVRD pay for it. So yeah, definitely in support of this.
Thanks for that, Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks. I sort of disagree with that assessment because partly I was at the table, and there is no way that we got any money without ICF's effort with the province, and the 18 million we got was thanks to the ICF. And I'm seeing other regional districts, yes, they've benefited, but they're also contributing more of their funds into improvements right now while they're doing the shared vision process. CRD, Nanaimo, Cowichan, all of them are actually well ahead of the Comox Valley in stepping up to the plate. And in all honesty, as I said at last meeting, I'm not quite sure what we're doing on the shared vision process right now. I think we're pissing money out the door on consultants. We're definitely over the report because we were supposed to be done this work some time ago, and we're extending and extending. And I thought the first report was pretty good from urban system. I don't know what we're working on right now. So I think underground money would be better. But with those comments in mind, that's not what I was going to say. What I was going to say is I would like, because I think Dr. Hardy made a really good comment last meeting on this, which is this is going to, I think it was Dr. Hardy, this is going to be a continuing thing for the ICF. And I think I'd like to refer this report, because I think the board will vote with the staff on this. So if that's the case, I would like to refer this to the ASC, because much of the corridor is in Area A, and we're starting discussions on park budget for the rural areas. And I think that from my perspective, what would be really good is to figure out how to keep doing maintenance over the next number of years. So for example, I could see Area A through Park Service putting in like 25K a year, and kind of just putting it into the park budget for us. And that's just a figure that I'm coming up, so that regular maintenance on a continuous basis continues. I don't really want to burden the rest of the board with this. consideration because we don't have a funding mechanism outside of regional park and we're not there yet. So I would say just refer it to ESC and I'll have those discussions with my colleagues around whether we can figure out a way to permanently fix the maintenance of the corridor in our area. Thanks.
Director Arbor, I didn't hear a motion there. Did you want to just sit on that while we discuss and maybe come back to a motion for referral? Okay. Jake, would you respond to the first part about report that might be coming to the board at some point about ICF and how we're spending those funds? Thanks.
Absolutely, Chair. Yeah. So we did note in this report just the general funding commitment around that project so far. And we have been working through that project through a working group made up of representatives of the sort of partner agencies and governments a part of that. That includes the CVRD, the City of Courtenay, Comox First Nation, and the Island Quarter Foundation. I can certainly appreciate the board's and the public's desire to sort of move as quickly as we can with those conversations, given the real desire to see change and the sort of level of frustration around the inactivity that's been going on with the corridor. However, you know, I would certainly encourage the board's patience with this. It is a complex topic. It is really tied to a number of historical, impactful issues, particularly concerning Indigenous nations. And so we are, as best we can and as quickly as we can, working through those conversations, but it is going to take time. And I can say that we are not at a stalemate in any regard. It's just it's a slow, methodical process. And like Director Arbor outlined, we have done some important background study work, and we are advancing that. And we look forward to bringing a report forward to the board very soon, once we're able to basically determine our next steps, which includes a leadership forum amongst those groups to talk about the future of the corridor, and then subsequently some public engagement around this. So there's some important steps to come with this. I can appreciate the frustrations for sure, but I again encourage just a bit more patience in that respect.
Okay. Oh, and we do have a question. Okay, Director Hardy, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks. I know that Chair Hamilton and myself attended the Island Corridor Foundation Board meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we did bring up concerns and issues revolving around the request from the Island Corridor for Foundation for up to $200,000, and I thought we put forward some valid points to the board, and I know the board's gonna go back and do some reconsideration of how we move forward on the requests and how we move forward on management of the whole entire corridor moving forward. And I think what was suggested at the board was that you know, maybe it's a culmination of all the regional districts, you know, making a contribution, and then maybe trying to get First Nations to be involved in the contribution of doing that maintenance on the rail system as well. So I think there's more than one way of skinning the cat here with regards to trying to address this issue moving forward. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, if I may just add to that, yeah, I've had conversations with Thomas Bevan around the shared funding concept, and he's certainly receptive to it and sees opportunity to do so, as well as the other opportunity which I mentioned, which is around the Fire Smart program. So yeah, I'm certainly of the view that we want to see some essential maintenance undertaken and establish that foundation so that some more regular maintenance can occur. But we'd like to explore a slightly different funding arrangement just to facilitate that.
Okay, so board, here's what I think we should do. We're still on receipt. Let's vote on receipt. I'll have a little pause in case there's a motion for referral, and then depending on that, we'll go to the recommendation. So any further discussion? Anyone opposed to receipt? Motion carries. All right. Thank you, Director Grieve. Second by Grant. And any discussion on the recommendation? Director Grieve.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'll move the recommendation. It's basically writing a letter. It's not a real heavy action-based request. So, I mean, I think it's important to send off a letter at this point. In addition to the other avenues we're pursuing.
Director Arbor, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, yeah, exactly. It's just writing a letter and bringing in BC Wildfire. I'm kind of opposed to the recommendation because it's so inactive. But if I'm allowed, maybe I'll have a further recommendation to forward the request to the ESC after this recommendation is dispensed with. Thanks.
You'll definitely be allowed to make a recommendation. Absolutely. Jake, did you want to say something else?
No,
No,
sorry.
you're good. Okay. Okay. Any further questions, comments on this? All right. All those in favor of the recommendation? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Oh, sorry. Yes, my apologies. Director Arthur was opposed. Anyone else opposed? No. And Director Arbor, I presume you want to make another motion? Please go
I'd
ahead.
like to move that the ICF requests be referred to the ESC committee.
Okay, so we have another motion on the floor. And just for clarification, that would mean the letter wouldn't go until ESC. It can go. Okay. All right. Just like making sure I understand the intent. Okay. Any discussion on this recommendation? Okay. All those in favor? Anyone opposed to this one? None opposed. Okay. And motion carries. Great. Thanks for that discussion on this one. Moving along to number 6, North Island 911 shareholder updates. Great. And again, over to CEO Warren.
Thank you very much. I think that Jake Martins is introducing this one as well. Yeah, this is a view here for Jake as our General Manager for Corporate Services. So Jake.
Thank you, James, and through the chair. Yes, so this very brief report responds to a request from North Island 911 for approval of an amended and restated shareholders agreement and for a resolution to amend the articles of incorporation for the North Island 911. This request really centers on the proposed inclusion of Tla'amin Nation as a shareholder to advance their goals of self-determination and emergency services. And so we've been working with them over the past number of months around exploring this and working as well with the North Island 911 board. We feel like we've arrived at a path forward in which we can facilitate this inclusion. And as part of that, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs has identified a number of further requests as part of this proposed amendment to the articles. The Inspector of Municipalities must improve all articles for local government corporations. And as this is one of them, they have flagged these additional requests as part of this effort that we've been undertaking. Those requests I would deem as fairly minor. They're certainly not of concern to us. And in many cases, they are practices that we've been employing for a number of years. I'll just note the kind of general outline of those, which is a borrowing limit for the corporation, restricting investments to those that local governments can make, the application of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, the inclusion of a company mandate, and the appointment of an auditor. And again, none of these are certainly concerning or alarming to us in any regard. Staff are recommending endorsement of this, and the same request has gone to the other shareholder regional districts. And so should all of the shareholder regional districts unanimously approve this, then the change would be executed. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'm pleased to answer any questions that there may be.
Thank you, Jake. Any questions? Okay, we're on receipts. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, Grant and Wells, moving the recommendation. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor? Motion, anyone opposed? No, no one opposed. I assumed there wouldn't be. Motion carries. All right, on to number 7. Hornby Island Community Hall Committee Grant Application. Moved by Director Arbor and seconded by Alternate Director Wells. Over to CEO Warren again.
Kelly Broughton will be introduced. Kelly Broughton's our Manager of Financial Planning. Kelly will be introducing this report. Kelly.
Thank you. Good afternoon through the CAO to the Chair and Directors. Staff are here to request a board resolution to support and sponsor the Hornby Island Community Halls grant application to the Comox Valley Community Foundation. The Hornby Island Community Hall is a facility that is in part supported by annual funding provided through property taxation within Service 670, Hornby Island Community Facilities. During 2023, the Community Hall Committee was provided with a $50,000 grant from the CBRD to apply towards the funding of a green roof capital project. The project included some necessary repairs and replacements of some of the existing roof, the installation of a barrier membrane, and finally soil and plants to the roof itself to create a contained green living space that will help provide climate change protection for the building. before the final steps of the soil and plants being installed. An inspection discovered that additional work to the roof would be required. The new repairs needed resulted in a delay for the project completion, which has resulted in a funding shortfall. To alleviate the shortfall, the Hornby Island Community Hall Committee is applying for a grant of $26,050 through the Comox Valley Community Foundation. The Comox Valley Community Foundation provides support to various charities throughout the community through the provision of grants, scholarships, and resources. Their mission states that in part they work with generous supporters and donors from all corners of our community to build a lasting legacy and enrich the life in the Comox Valley. To receive a grant, the Comox Valley Community Foundation requires that a registered not-for-profit society, such as the committee, work in partnership with a fiscal sponsor. As a local government, the CVRD can become the sponsor and act as a flow-through funding agency to ensure all the grant conditions and reporting is completed before the funds are transferred to the Hornby Island Community Hall Committee via the Hornby Island Residents and Ratepayers Association. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kelly. Any questions? All right, we're still on receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt? Motion carries. All right, Grieve and Grant for moving the recommendation. Any further questions or comments? Okay, anyone opposed? Motion carries. Excellent. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
All right, on to number 8. Any discussion on the minutes? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Number 9, Sewage Commission minutes. Grant and Wells. Any comments on the minutes? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, on to section G. We have one bylaw to discuss, 888, and security issue bylaw 876. Okay, moved by Grant, seconded by Grieve. Any discussion on this? This is a vote for everyone. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Almost. Just before, we have one item of new business that came up late, and Chair's prerogative, I'm going to let Director Hardy bring up a topic that he'd like to discuss in the open meeting. Go ahead, Director Hardy. You're on mute there, Director Hardy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I won't be very long here, but I just wanted to take the time to wish you all the best in your campaigning for the BC leadership for the Green Party. So I just wanted to say thanks for your efforts and moving forward on that, and wish you all the best.
Well, thank you, Director Hardy. That was touching and unexpected. Thank you. All right, a motion to go in camera. Okay. And Director Morin and Director Hardy, we're going to have a quick little recess here to get dinner and bring it back for the closed session. So sorry for the little delay. Thank you.